What's up, everybody? As of today, we are 5 days out from the return of the notorious Conor McGregor, so I decided to do a UFC 246 card breakdown. My name is Rudy, and I am your host of the Isn't It Crazy podcast. All right, so I'm very excited to do this. I've been waiting for Conor to come back for a couple months now, and he's been on a hiatus ever since he lost to Khabib. So him announcing that he was going to come back in January 18th got me fired up. And it wasn't official till Dana White said that he was coming back. He dropped the video around Thanksgiving. And the problem with the Conor fights is that you never know when he's going to want to come back. And if he says a date, UFC usually accommodates for it. So the card isn't very stacked. Making a card have good fights takes a long time. There was no press conference. There was no 3 months out. It was kind of all rushed. There hasn't been a lot of media coverage on this. I know the press conference is like 2 days from now, which most likely Conor said he didn't want to do any news till after the holidays. You know, fighters want to spend time, Christmas, New Year's, whatever it is. But I think the UFC did a good job with the fights that they did schedule. It's a mixture between new faces and old faces, and I get where they're coming from. They're trying to give exposure to fighters that aren't in the limelight but are good fighters. And I did some research because some of the fighters, I had no idea who they were. But the first fight I'm going to talk about in the card breakdown is in the lightweight division. It's Anthony Pettis from Milwaukee, Wisconsin versus Carlos Diego Ferreira. I think I'm saying that right. And it's the first fight of the main card. And if you know anything about Showtime, that they call him Showtime for a reason. He's gonna push the action, the pace, and I don't think Carlos is ready for that elite striking. I did watch the UFC countdown show where they showed like a background of Carlos, and he's more of a jiu-jitsu guy. And his trainer could say that he has gotten better, and the guy's he's no slouch. He's coming off a 5-fight win streak, so I mean he's no joke in the UFC. You know, it's hard to get a win streak like that, but I don't think he's ready for Anthony Pettis's elite striking. And if anything, if Carlos seems to be getting in trouble, he's just gonna shoot down and try to submit him. Usually, what happens in fights is you could have a game plan, but at the end of the day, you're going off reaction. So that's why they train so much, because they're trying to get these repetitions so you don't have to think about it. It's more reaction once you're in the fight. So I think if Carlos does end up getting into trouble, his trainers could say all they want. He's going to go for a takedown, and he's going to try to finish this on the ground. And but I don't think it's going to get to that. I think Anthony Pettis knocks him out in the second round. Anthony Pettis does take one round at the beginning. He's not a fast starter. He will push the pace, but at the same time, he's trying to figure out his distance, figure out his opponent. And in the second round, I feel like he's going to figure Carlos out. Carlos is going to try to keep up with the striking, but at the end of the day, I see Anthony Pettis knocking him out. So my pick for the first fight of the card would be Anthony Showtime Pettis, second round knockout. So moving on to the women's strawweight, that's the second fight of the card. You got Claudia Gadelha versus Alexa Grosso, or should I say Grasso? She's from Mexico, and not a lot of tape on Alexa. She came from Invicta, and I mean Claudia Gadelha has been in plenty of cards before, so you've definitely seen her around. Now, the interesting part of this fight is that both women like to strike. So it's not going to be a boring fight. It's not going to go to the ground. The only difference between these fighters is that Claudia Gadelha likes to likes that phone booth combat. She likes to get close. She likes to throw knees. She likes to get into a clinch, and that's where she does most of her work. Alexa comes from boxing style, so you're gonna see her move around, a lot of jabs, and then setting up those big punches. Whether she could stay away from Claudia is gonna be the interesting part. If Claudia closes that, Alexa might have some problems. If it does go to the ground, which I don't see that happening, I think Claudia Gadelha wins the fight. I'm gonna go with, just because he's Mexican, and that's probably the worst fucking reason to choose somebody, just because of their ethnicity. I'm gonna pick Alexa Grasso to win this fight. I think it goes to decision. Um, it's not a knock on women fighters, because you do have the fighters like Ronda Rousey and Amanda Nunes that do have knockout power, but most girls in the strawweight division don't really possess that. And so I'm gonna choose Alexa Grasso in decision. I just think she outstrikes Claudia Gadelha, and she's gonna push more of the pace. Okay, for the third fight of the night, you got Alexis Oleinik versus Marcus Greeny. Alexis is a beast on the ground. Most of his fights have been decided on submissions. He is old as shit, and he has a ton of fights under his belt. He's 57-13, and Greeny has 8-3 record. What makes this fight interesting is the experience, the gap of experience. You have somebody who doesn't, he has 11 fights, and you have somebody who has about 60, 70 fights under his belt. I truly believe that experience is a great fucking weapon against anybody. You're the moment's not too much for you. You've been there. You're comfortable in there. When you're comfortable in the ring, you tend to make better decisions. And Alexis Oleinik is a fucking vet in that ring. So I see Maurice having a hard time in this fight if he cannot take him out in the first round. If Oleinik could weather the storm and take him down to the ground, I think it's over for Greeny. And Greeny, I do not know how to say that guy's name. It's like one of those names that you can say 1,000 times, and until you hear somebody say it, then you'll know the right pronunciation. But yeah. So if Oleinik takes it to the ground, it's game over. I see him, and I do see him weathering the storm. I see him getting him tired. I see Oleinik's experience shining through and helping him out in this fight and getting him that dub. So I'm going to pick Oleinik to win, maybe in the third round by submission, after he's tired his opponent out and used his experience to understand when to push and when to let homeboy just get tired. And I feel like Greeny's going to push that envelope and try to knock him out. He understands that if he does go to the ground, he's in trouble. So you're going to see a lot of action in the first rounds, and as Greeny gets tired, you're going to see Oleinik experience and jiu-jitsu just bring him down to the ground and finish him there. So that's what I got. Okay, so for the co-main event, you got Holly Holmes versus Raquel Pennington, and this is their second fight. They fought once before, and Holly Holm won by decision. I don't see this going any differently. Holly Holm did knock out Ronda Rousey, and some people say like this was when they were young, they're changed fighters, and that might be very true, but when you have somebody's number, you have that person's number. Second fights usually don't go any different. I feel like there's an advantage to beating somebody and having a second fight, because you come in with a confidence that you already know this person can beat you. And when it comes to Holly Holm, she executes kicks and punches very well. Raquel Pennington does like to strike too, but at the end of the day, I feel like the difference is that Holly Holm is going to come in there with confidence, and she's going to understand that those kicks are lethal. I see Holly Holm knocking out Raquel Pennington in the third round, and I do like Raquel Pennington's style of fighting, but you can't beat that confidence, especially when it's somebody like Holly Holmes who trains at New Mexico, and her team. I just feel like it's a more solid camp, and that's why Holly Holmes going to win. So I got Holly Holmes winning, third round knockout, preferably by kick. That'd be a lot of fun to watch. Like I said, it's not oh my god kind of card. Usually those cards come in fight week in June or July in the summer event, or at the end of the year when the UFC is just trying to bust their nut. So that's it for the first four fights before the main event. Like I said, not a lot of oh shit kind of fights. One of my favorite ones, it is the Anthony Pettis versus Carlos, and that is the first fight. So it sets the tone, right? So it sets the tone for the whole card, and hopefully there is a lot of knockouts. That's usually what makes cards very exciting. I'm sure there's a reason why they chose these type of fights. I guarantee you time was a lot of the decision into it. Fighters that are coming up in the ranks and versus old vets like Anthony Pettis and Oleinik. So we're gonna see a combination of experience and just raw talent coming together, and we'll see if my theory is right about whether experience beats raw talent any day. Hopefully I'm right. And now to the main event. It's my homeboy Conor McGregor versus Donald Cowboy Cerrone. This fight started a long time ago. If you followed Conor, one of the best parts of watching Conor fight is the press conference. It's just a lot of shit talking. It's bravado. It's how he sets up these big pay-per-views. And in one of the press conference before he fought Aldo, he had a back and forth with Donald Cerrone. And if you look at the video, you could tell Conor is planting seeds everywhere. Whether it was Rafael dos Anjos or Cowboy Cerrone, he was talking shit to everybody there. And the genius behind Conor's shit talking is that he's planting seeds everywhere because maybe in the future he's looking at potential fights and they could use that as the point. And that's exactly what the UFC has done. They started every promo starts with Conor talking shit to Cowboy Cerrone at that press conference. And it's believable. There is videos of like Cerrone going backstage and hugging Conor and saying good luck on your fight or whatever. Every time they were in the same card. But nonetheless, I guarantee you the moment you sign up to fight somebody, they become your enemy and all those pleasantries go away, especially when it comes to Conor. People say to be nice to Cowboy because when you're nice to Cowboy, he doesn't fight as hard. And I could see Conor picking that up and saying that Cowboy is a very good family man and wishing him happy holidays during the break. And you could tell Conor's playing an angle, or at least I think Conor's playing an angle. As far as the fight goes, some people might say that Conor comes with ring rust. I don't truly believe in that. If you stay ready throughout your hiatus, there's not a lot of ring rust. And if you follow Conor on social media, Conor has been posting pictures of him in the gym. So I don't think there's a lot of ring rust there. I don't think there's ring rust at all at any level. Usually if they give you time to prep for a fighter, you know what to expect and you know what you're going to do. And like I said, a lot of fighting is reactionary. So we're going to see Conor's reactions come to fruition. And now that he doesn't really have to worry about a takedown like in the fight with Khabib, he's going to be all offensive. In the Khabib fight, he was more defensive because he didn't want to get taken down. And he says that that might have been one of the handicaps that hindered him from winning that fight. So in this fight, you're going to see a more offensive Conor. He's going to come out the gates trying to knock out Donald Cerrone. And I think Donald has expected that. And there's people that say that Donald Cerrone is a slow starter. But at the end of the day, Donald Cerrone is no slouch in the striking game either. If you watch some of Donald's earlier fights, he does start slow, but at the same time, most people do. They're trying to gauge timing and space. So you could see Donald trying to download all that. And if Donald understands that he can start this fight slow, you're going to see a Donald Cerrone that's going to be very defensive and at the same time trying to push the pace against Conor. When it comes to cardio, I think Donald does beat Conor at that. The Notorious is notoriously known for his lack of cardio. And I don't know if the McGregor Fast program's going to help him with any of that. Hopefully it does. I think if you start a company that says it will help you become faster, stronger, and have more stamina, it looks terrible on your brand if you cannot live up to that. You know, maybe stronger, sure, but the cardio has always been his Achilles heel, or the one thing that you could say that's wrong with Conor. If it does go to the ground, people think Conor is a one-trick pony. I've heard that from many media outlets. I've heard that from Chael Sonnen, not Brendan Shaw, but I've heard it from a lot of people who say that he only has a left hook and that's it. So if you read into what Conor's coach is all about, I actually have a book right there. It's Win or Learn by John Kavanagh. And if you know anything about John Kavanagh, he is a master at jiu-jitsu. So I don't understand why people say that Conor's a one-trick pony when his coach is a master of jiu-jitsu. I'm sure they drill that all the time. One of his sparring partners is Dylan Danis, top tier jiu-jitsu fighter. To say Conor's a one-trick pony is just to completely ignore all the other facts that he does train with the coach that is primarily into jiu-jitsu. His sparring partners are into jiu-jitsu. So if it does go to the ground, I don't see Conor struggling a lot. Cowboy does have more weapons when it comes down to the ground. He did have Mike Perry in an armbar, and that's how he won. He's had multiple wins when it comes down to the ground. But at the end of the day, I feel like this is more important to Conor. Conor knows he needs to win this fight, and if he wins this fight, it sets up two of the biggest fights in UFC history. One against George Masvidal, maybe one against Nate Diaz. He definitely wants that Khabib rematch. So what happens if Conor loses? It's going to be a lot harder to suggest that Conor fight Khabib for the championship. You could do the Nate Diaz fight next week. You could do the Nate Diaz fight 3 years from now, a month from now. That's always going to be good. Whether Conor wins or lose, that fight's always there. You know, the history, the storyline, the way the first two fights went, he's always going to have that in his back pocket. He has to win to make an argument to fight Khabib. He has to win to make an argument to fight George Masvidal. Can those fights still happen? Yeah, but it's more intriguing if you could say that he has won at 170 twice and is willing to fight maybe a Kamaru Usman for the championship or a very interesting fight against George Masvidal. Now, would I say George Masvidal beats the brakes out of Conor? That's a reality that is hard for me to swallow. But George Masvidal does possess elite striking. So obviously for this fight, I'm going to ride with Conor. I always have. He's always my choice, regardless of how hard the opponent is, how scared I am of that opponent. I even chose him in the Khabib fight, and I knew he had a chance, but I knew it wasn't a very good one. Something told me deep down that he was going to lose, and he did. And there's not much that I see in Cerrone that Conor hasn't seen before. I see Conor coming out like a bat out of hell in the first round. I think the action slows down when it comes to the second. I see Conor getting his second win in the third round, fourth round, and if we still make it to the fifth round, I see Conor inching past Cowboy. It's going to be a close fight. I'm not saying that Cowboy has no shot at this, but it's going to go all the way to decision, Conor's going to win, or Conor knocks him out, most likely in the third round. If the striking does go right for Conor, if he can land that left. I don't see one left knocking Cowboy out, especially not at 170. If you look at the fight between Nate Diaz, it's harder to knock out people when there's more weight involved. You know, at 145, Conor was knocking them all out, and at 170, he struggled to. Did he knock Nate Diaz down to the ground? Sure, but he struggled to end the fight via knockout. So we'll see what happens. I see him wearing Cowboy down to the point where he can knock him out in the third round, but it's not going to be a very fast or easy fight for Conor at all. So those are my picks for today. You have Anthony Pettis, Alexa Grosso, Alexis Oleinik, Holly Holm, and Conor McGregor. Don't go betting on my opinions because I will make fun of you if you message me saying you lost a lot of money because you followed what I said. This is my personal pick. I looked at the facts. I did my research. And at the end of the day, this is who I feel is going to win. So maybe you guys think differently. Please comment down below. And that's all I got for today. I'm very excited to see Conor come back. Win or lose, you always get a show. And hopefully it's a good night for him. And depending on how it goes, maybe I'll do a reaction video to the fight. But thank you for tuning in. Thank you for watching. And my name is Rudy, and this is the Isn't It Crazy podcast. Thank you.